All right, folks, in today's episode, we are going to be revealing a charcuterie project that has literally been 3 years in the making, kind of. Some of you have been asking for updates on the Reserve-50 dry curing, dry aging cabinet. We mainly use it for dry curing, but you can dry age meat in it as well. And honestly, I have not put a lot of new projects in there. We plan on changing that in 2025. But if you remember, if you've been following the channel for a little while, earlier this year, we put a Culatello inside that cabinet. I wanted to see how the Reserve-50 could handle a Culatello. But this wasn't an ordinary Culatello. This was a Culatello that we found in our refrigerator that had been curing in a vacuum bag for 2 years in the fridge. I basically forgot about it.
And then one day came across this Culatello in the fridge in a bag.
Opened it up, it smelled amazing, beautiful aromas, definitely ripened 2 years in the refrigerator. And so naturally, we prepared it to begin the drying process. My goal originally was to leave it in the Reserve-50 for at least a year to see what happened. I was hoping for 18 months, possibly 2 years, but 1 year would have been great, and I didn't want to do anything special to it. Just standard operating procedure. We put it in its casing and then hung it to dry. It's now 11 months later and our Culatello is done, and we're about to pull it out, slice it up, and see how the Reserve-50 handled it. The total time so far has been 3 years on this Culatello. 2 years in the refrigerator curing, and that was an accident. I did not mean to do that. And then 11 months drying in the Reserve-50. Let's go check it out.
Here we go. I'll put a link in the description, by the way, if you want more information on this dry aging, dry curing cabinet. This is the pancetta that we put in there at the exact same time as the Culatello. So that's been in there for quite some time. Definitely going to be pulling that one out next. And here we go. Here's our Culatello muscle. We now have it hanging rather than, laying on that bottom shelf. Very firm. Let's put this on a scale and see what the weight looks like. We were originally targeting a 35% weight loss, and I can tell you right now that this is super firm. It'll be interesting to see what the inside looks like, because as I give this a press, woo, it is definitely dried. Our target was 1852. Let's give it a little scale here and see what happens. We are at 1619. Okay, so we overshot our target by around 200 grams, or a half a pound. Let's see what our actual weight loss is. -1. Here we go. Okay, 43%. A little drier than I was hoping for, but still, it seems incredibly firm. So I don't know if we're going to have a disaster when we give it a slice. We'll find out here in a minute. We started off with a weight of 6¼ pounds, and the final weight right now is 3½ pounds, a little over 3½ pounds. It doesn't smell bad. I mean, it definitely, has a ripened smell, a more mature smell. We need to get rid of the casing that we originally wrapped it in. So right now, this is stuck on there solid. I mean, it looks like the Culatello itself is stitched up, but that's just the casing. So here's what I typically do when I have a casing that's on there pretty tight, and I don't want to fumble around with it too long. I'm just going to put it under some lukewarm water and let it rest in that lukewarm water for about 5 minutes. And what should happen is it should slightly rehydrate the casing, which will allow it to separate from the muscle a whole lot easier. You could also do this for salami. So 5 minutes later, notice the casing is already starting to come away from the meat. Absolutely perfect. And we should be able to peel that off without any problem. The casing that we used was hog bladder. It's a traditional casing for Culatello. And we got that from Craft Butcher's Pantry. I'll put a link in the description box. Great for Culatello, but also great for making, unique salami as well. All right, this is coming off beautifully. No problems with that. Just peeling right on off. Really, 5 minutes soaking, softens it up, and then you can remove it without any issue. And like I said, you could do this with salami casing as well, in the event that you've got it really dried on. So there you go. All right. Everything at this point looks super good. I mean, I am slightly concerned with how firm it is, but let's put it on the slicer and see how it cuts.
All right, guys, let's take a closer look at this Culatello. Let me know in the comment section below, what do you think? Beautiful looking color. Fat is nice and firm. A little bit of a darker area here at the top indicating it dried a little bit faster over here. This area could have been in the direction of the fan, maybe pointing up like that. I can tell you that this is dried all the way to the center, no problem. It does look a little more tender in the center, a little bit drier on the outer rings. But then again, we did overshoot our target by a little bit. And so I think if we would have pulled this a little bit sooner, we might have had a more tender Culatello. You know what? Let's just give it a taste and see what it tastes like. There we go. Little slice. What do you think about that? Very thinly cut. When I give it a tear, it tears pretty easy. No problem there. As far as the smell goes, I'm kind of missing out on that sweetness that normal Culatello has. This has gone past that, and it's more into that aged, ripened, more mature aromas that you get from, you know, like extreme aging. I can see where this might not be for a whole lot of people. I think the more aged meat gets, you sort of narrow your audience down, and this is definitely in that, you know, funky, umami, earthy element. Wow, okay, here we go. It's not bad. But wow, that is definitely deep. I mean, that has got intense flavors coming from it. I just got to maybe give it one more bite here and see what that's all about. I got to tell you, I am missing that tenderness that typically comes from regular Culatello. I do feel like this is dried a little bit more than it should. But as it stands right now, this honestly turned out better than I thought it would. Wow. Those are some intense flavors, not normally associated with prosciutto and Culatello, and 100% coming, you know, from that 2-year aging time in the refrigerator. I do think that it's a little too much, honestly. And it would be interesting to see, you know, what would happen if you let your whole muscle hang out in the refrigerator for, you know, 90 days or even 180 days, and then you begin the drying process. I think you would still get that elevated flavor, but it wouldn't be so overpowering like it is right now. I mean, it is definitely in your face. As far as the cabinet goes, I wasn't expecting much. Case hardening, raw in the center, completely spoiled. That's what I was anticipating. But instead, we got a whole muscle that is dried all the way to the center. Although some areas are drier than most, overall, I gotta admit, I'm kind of impressed, especially since it was in there for 11 months and the Reserve-50 doesn't have a true humidification system. I mean, it basically relies on the moisture of the meat to maintain the humidity inside that chamber. I do think that if I were to do this again, what I would do differently is maybe at about 30%, maybe 32 to 35%, somewhere in that range, I would do a Sunya coating on the meat portion of it. What that's going to do is radically slow down the drying process. It's going to equalize whatever you've got going on in here. So if there's one area that's a little bit drier than the rest, that should equalize it. And then you could leave it in your cabinet for another year, another 18 months. And what you'll end up with is a piece of meat dried in the style of Culatello that should be pretty freaking delicious. And there you go. I thought today's meat was going to be a waste. So glad that it isn't. And remember, this particular video was an extreme test on the Reserve-50. Honestly, I just wanted to see what would happen. Most projects do not need to hang for 11 or 12 months. Things like pancetta, bresaola, colpa, your salami, your snack sticks, even if you're going to do some of the more exotic stuff, usually those are 30 to about 90 days. And everything that we've put into that chamber that's been in there for 30 to 90 days has come out absolutely beautiful. From pitina to the picanha that we made. No problem there. So, all right, guys, that's all I got for you today. Thanks a lot for watching. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. And be sure to stick around because the next thing we're going to be pulling out of that is our pancetta. I left it in there as long as I left the Culatello. So the pancetta's been in there for almost a year as well. I remember when we gave it a taste test in the raw form, it was ultra salty and ultra funky, and I cannot wait to see whether any of that changed after drying for literally 11 months. Thanks a lot for watching. If you enjoyed today's video and you want to see more videos like it, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not currently subscribed, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss a single one of our uploads. Thanks a lot for being here. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. I gotta have one more piece. Just one more piece. Wow. Woo! That is ripe.